Welcome to Bitcoin and Ethereum. We have a packed house tonight. So before I get started, I just want a quick show of hands just to kind of test the temperature of the room. How many people here found out about Bitcoin or blockchain within the last 3 months? So we'll say about 10% of the room? 10% of the room? Okay, and show of hands if this is your first meetup that you've been to. Wow, okay, so it's quite a bit more. So quick kind of background information about me. I actually got into Bitcoin in 2014, and like many of you who've been in the Bitcoin space for a while, and many of you who've just recently raised your hands, you're gonna go into a period where you're not gonna eat much, you're not gonna sleep much, and you're really gonna delve to find out as much as you can about this technology. And I'm really happy that you guys are here to share this experience with us as well. And our first keynote speaker, Jonathan, is going to give us an introduction in terms of how he is transitioning startups into the blockchain world. Great job.
Thank you. So, good night, everybody. First of all, I would like to congratulate Sonny and his team for a packed room. It's amazing to see that that vibe here in Toronto. So, quick applaud for Sonny. So I'm going to talk to you about Catalaxy. Catalaxy is a venture we just launched back in July. So a quick primer. Any fans of Austrian economics here in the room? Okay. So you kind of like my picture. Mises is my homeboy. Eh? So Catalaxy is, the term is derived from the Greek. It means katalato, means to exchange. It was originally coined by Ludwig von Mises, later used by his student and Nobel Prize winner Friedrich Hayek, who was not satisfied with the term economy because, according to him, that was too much centered on state macroeconomy and not the science of exchange between individuals. So he created the terms Catalaxy to really highlight the science of exchange between individual. Catalaxy or catalactics create a spontaneous order, which means no central planning, where parties can exchange freely and peacefully. It also referred to a marketplace of ideas. So all the description I just gave, it's a pretty good description of blockchain and Bitcoin as a space. So to us, that was a good name to use. Our story. So Catalaxy is an international blockchain expertise center. We launched in July 2017 with we're aiming to have 15 local experts by the end of the year and around 50 international contributors. It's a joint venture co-founded by early Montreal Bitcoin ecosystem leaders. We're going to present them later. And Raymond Chabot Grant Thornton, which is the Quebec biggest accounting and auditing firm with 2,300 employees. 4,000 when you count Grant Thornton Canada. They're also investing in cybersecurity, data science, and AI. It's also a 100% private investment. It's already running. We're not waiting for a federal government check. So we're already running and up for business. So our team. So obviously me, Jonathan, I'm the CEO. I have a background in dropping out of business school and trolling mostly. No, to be honest. I have an experience in mostly payments, e-commerce, and mobile development, mostly on the biz dev side. My co-founder, Francis, where is he, Francis? He's on the back. So Francis was the co-founder of the Bitcoin Embassy Montreal. I think it was the first physical Bitcoin hub in the world, and it's world famous. And Francis is our head of research and crypto asset. He's an expert into game theory, Bitcoin protocol, also trolling. He's a pretty good troll. I use that, maybe you recognize him with that small cap. So he was a part of this USF team. So, and Vincent Gauthier, which is head of technology and product, he's studied computer science from some French university, which I forget. We also have the particularity of our team is we have it's a good mix between Bitcoin expert and traditional professional from RCGT. So Louis Roy, which is a chartered professional accountant, he's actually the guy who made us back in the days at a Bitcoin Blockchain Montreal meetup, and he pitched us the idea to just maybe start something together. So he was really a visionary guy in this transition for the accounting and auditing industry. So I think Louis is in the room as well, in the back. Also from our CGT, we have Jean-François Trépanier, which is an expert in regulatory and standard advisor, and Eric Nguyen, which is a CFA. He also have a background in crypto and math. He's the head of data science and analytics. So Arthur Prats is the Blockhouse manager and the community relation. So I'm gonna present the Blockhouse a little later. So what are her goals as an organization? So we empower the innovators and engineers. We do that by facilitating the funding with grants to protocol development. So if you're an expert with project that aims to bring new tools to the Bitcoin or the Ethereum ecosystem, we probably have money for you to help fund the protocol development. We're also fostering the tech adoption through commercial integration. We have major project right now in different fields. For example, supply chain management in pharma. We have some project with capital market big institutions, so we can leverage your technology and integrate it in some of our projects. We're also supporting and leveraging the public blockchain community and maintaining a strong relationship with academics. And we're also, what is called the Blockhouse, we're launching a hub 100% dedicated to the blockchain and applied cryptography space. So our services, what we were doing. So with the support of Quebec's largest accounting and auditing firm, we aim to drive and establish the best practice and facilitate industry coordination. So obviously we want to do education, training, and knowledge. We want to do blockchain strategy, advisory, and implementation. We want to do technology and product development, due diligence, benchmarking, and standard, public and private research and reports, audit, fiscal, regulatory, accounting, and corporate service. And that feels interesting because we're doing that in partnership with RCGT. And RCGT is also aiming to become a worldwide leader in crypto asset accounting and auditing. So that's really interesting, coordination. So the Blockhouse, that's an interesting project. Based in Montreal, it's Canada's blockchain expertise hub, 100% dedicated to blockchain and applied crypto. So we're not making any competition to all the existing fintech accelerator. We're actually partnering with them. We're going to share some events. So it's really dedicated to blockchain and applied crypto. It's an open blockchain community meeting space. We have grants for expert in residency, office space, dollars in grants. It's going to be Catalyx's offices as well. It's for now, it's a private investment in partnership with major local partners, donators, and industry leaders. We need you, for example, we need you if you're a protocol expert looking for a friendly home base. You can join us in Montreal soon. We're going to launch at the end of the fall. If you're industry leaders looking for authentic community reach and connection, we could be the connector for your technology or product. We aim to connect with regulators and government because bottom-up innovation for the win. And so, quick recap, TLDL, too long didn't listen. So, Montreal-based, Galaxy is a Montreal-based blockchain expertise center founded by local blockchain spec ops plus RCGT, which is the biggest accounting firm in Quebec, part of the Grant Thornton network. Services, education, training, development, crypto asset services. Our goal is to empower the engineers and innovators in the blockchain space. Also make Montreal great again. I don't know who put that up. Coming soon, the Blockhouse, which is going to be Canada's blockchain hub at the end of the fall 2017. So we have a booth here. If you want to come meet us at the end. Also, Francis and Arthur, I think they distributed the Bitcoin white paper with one of our flyers. So we're spreading the good news. So that's it. We're on all major social media platforms. So feel free to connect with us and see you later. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jonathan. So to give you guys an idea, we've been actually doing these meetups for the last couple years, and they've kind of changed and morphed in terms of its shape and form on how we bring you guys information. So today we actually jam-packed our meetup with 4 panels to kind of give that interactive discussion, and as well as include in each of those panels an opportunity to ask questions. But we are planning more events that go beyond the meetups. And I just wanted to invite up Sunny to the stage. Sunny's been working really, really hard for a very long time to make sure that these meetups are as awesome as they are. And I just wanted to give him a couple minutes to kind of explain what the next steps are and really what the vision of what it is we're trying to do. Everyone, Sunny.
Cool. Well, welcome everybody. Really happy to have you here. My name is Sunny. I'm one of the co-founders of Fintech Canada. I also started a company called Auditorium, which is one of India's leading Bitcoin companies. We're essentially a brokerage service, and we have some plans to bring our service to Canada as well. So I just wanted to quickly share a few thoughts. Actually, before I even do, can all the volunteers please put up your hand? And then if everyone can help me give them a warm round of applause. So, I'm pretty confident that our meetup has more volunteers than most meetups have people, so that's pretty cool. And as many of you know who've come to our previous events, we started this thing about a year and a half ago with maybe 3 or 4 people around a coffee table, and today here we are. So thank you all for coming. So I noticed that a lot of people said that they were here for the first time or they'd heard about Bitcoin for the first time. So there's going to be a lot of really smart people on stage. So before you hear them, I wanted to give you the not so smart person definition of Bitcoin, right? So the Bitcoin, so when I first learned about Bitcoin 4 or 5 years ago, I was just blown away, essentially because it's the world's first open source decentralized digital currency and payment network. So the reason a lot of people find Bitcoin confusing is because it's 2 things in one. It's both a digital currency, kind of like dollars or gold or rupees that go up and down in value. And in fact, when I first heard about Bitcoin a couple years ago, it was like $5 or $10. Today, I think it's like $5,000. So if you know any asset class that's even like remotely performed, even remotely close to that, I'd be interested in learning about it. And then the thing is that I was going to say is that so when we started these meetups, our goal was to just kind of bring together like-minded people, and within the next 7 to 10 years, we'd like to be able to essentially give birth to at least 10 unicorns. What do you guys think about that? Is that a good idea? Yeah. So so the idea behind that is to really get people thinking about entrepreneurship and how they can mix that with Bitcoin and blockchain. I know there's a lot of people from banks here, so I want to thank you guys for coming here as well. And before I forget, I want to also thank all of our speakers. Like I said, you guys have seen our list. Some of them, unfortunately, were not able to fly out today due to some emergencies, but 99% of the people are here, so we're super excited about that. And then before I hand the mic over to the next panel, I also wanted to thank all of our sponsors. So you see all the logos up there, but Cosmos, Catalexy, Kik, Auditorium are the title sponsors. And then we've also had a lot of help from Polymath, BAC, Ucash, Paycase, Nuco, Cryptiv, Blockchain TV, and Bitcoin Bay as well. So please help me give them a round of applause as well. All right, without any further ado, I'm going to hand the mic back to Brian, and I hope you guys all enjoy the show.
Perfect. Thanks, Sunny. Okay, so we are going to get started. So the first panel that we are bringing on board the theme is Bitcoin and Ethereum, the theme of the night. And so the panel will begin by having blockchain experts first define both Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then the discussion will then focus on some of the major advantages and disadvantages of each platform. Sorry, I'm just going to switch it over here. Perfect. So if I can invite to the stage our moderator and our panelists, we have Jeremiah Kangas, founder of Local Bitcoins, Diego Zalverdier, CEO and co-founder of RSK Labs, Tone Vase, derivatives trader and consultant in finance, blockchain, and Bitcoin, Anthony Diorio, the guy who actually started a lot of the meetups here in Toronto. He's the CEO and founder of Jax and Essential and founder of Ethereum. We have Russell Verbeeten, operations and product manager at Consensus, and our moderator, Tracy Leperullo, who is our blockchain futurist. So Tracy? I'm going to let you take it away.
No. I get to take all the thunder.
We got everyone up here?
You can have it all.
Perfect. And is Diego here with us? No, he's not. He's not here yet. Diego will be on the iPad traveling with us. Not Diego. Okay. Okay, guys. So hi, my name's Tracy Leparulo. I've been involved in the space since 2013 with a lot of people here I'm sitting on the panel with, doing things like the Bitcoin Expo, blockchain conferences, and hackathons, and Ethereum hackathons, and cool stuff. So today we're going to talk about Bitcoin and the comparisons with Ether and Ethereum. So first we'll go down the panel and quickly tell us a little bit about yourselves. We'll start on your end.
Okay, so my name is Jeremiah Skangas, and I started Local Bitcoins in 2012. Local Bitcoins is one of the oldest Bitcoin services out there. It's just a website where you can buy and sell Bitcoin.
Hey guys, my name is Tone Vase. I'm an analyst and a content creator in the space. I have a YouTube channel. I write on my website. And my specialty is economics and finance. And I talk a lot about trading and do my best to guide people in where the price of Bitcoin is going.
I'm Anthony Diorio. I'm the CEO and founder of Decentral and Jax. And I started the Toronto Bitcoin Meetup Group in 2012. And I invest in a number of companies and projects in the space.
Hey, Russell Verbeeden. I know Anthony from the early Ethereum days, and Tracy as well. Since that time, I've been part of Consensus, where I work on a number of our operations and product initiatives.
Awesome. So we have a really tight schedule today, so just a couple points. Keep everything really short and concise, to the point. You probably won't all have a chance to answer every question, but if there's something that you disagree with or you want to add your point, please just feel free to add it in. Looking forward to those. Also, the questions will be mixed up from broad to really narrow. We'll also be having questions sent to my phone, and at the end of it, there'll be a 5-minute Q&A where the audience can ask questions. So let's get right to it. So first question, I guess, just to keep it very high level. In a very, very basic definition, can you explain the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum?
Am I first?
Yeah, sure.
Well, first, what's the price of Bitcoin? No, I'm joking. They're both blockchains, and they use that innovative structure to agree on the state of their systems. Bitcoin agrees on the state of which account has which Bitcoins, and Ethereum, generally speaking, agrees on the state of many different programs, including which are called smart contracts, the state of those programs, in addition to who has which Ether. Let's see how much better that will get, probably quite a bit.
I think we should probably just keep adding on to things rather than repeating ourselves here. So I'll say that Bitcoin's a decentralized digital currency and payment system. And I always think of Ethereum as a platform for building decentralized applications on top of.
All right, so it was mentioned that they're both blockchains, and they are both blockchains for now because they're both proof of work. If Ethereum does go to proof of stake, I personally will no longer consider it a blockchain. But even at the moment, there are additional differences. Bitcoin has a direct identity as a peer-to-peer value transfer. Ethereum has a token that you need to use the platform. And to me, that is not something that's economically viable, because I compare it to using Amazon stock to buy on Amazon, and you're turning every user of your platform into a speculator of that platform, and economically, that makes no sense to me. Thank you.
Okay, so, well, I have to say that I have never used Ethereum, but yeah, I would say that Bitcoin is a value transfer and storage protocol, and Ethereum is kind of the same, but much more complicated.
Okay, so a few good points were brought up. Do you want to quickly talk about what Actually, sorry, we're going to take a step back. Okay, so what kind of industries are impacted by Bitcoin versus what kind of industries are impacted by Ethereum? Anybody?
Excuse me. When I talk about the difference between Bitcoin and things beyond Bitcoin, I always say that Bitcoin is going to make a lot of disruption in the financial market. It's going to make disruption in payment systems. It's going to disrupt credit card systems. And I like to say with smart contracts, there's going to be a disruption in many other sectors. Now, I'm not sure if Tone might disagree with that, but I always like to say Bitcoin will disrupt the finance, and Ethereum and smart contracts, or at least smart contracts, have the potential to disrupt every other sector.
Yeah, I go the other way on this one. Bitcoin will disrupt anything that involves value transfer. So you can eliminate the bank, and that opens up certain ways to pay for things that are censored in your particular country. And every country has their own laws. So it's fairly straightforward by now what Bitcoin is disrupting. A lot of people think that Ethereum will do that for contracts. But my view on it is contracts aren't censored. Bitcoin is just there to get around censorship laws on value transfer. But how many contracts in your day-to-day life, living in a first world country, developed country, how many of those contracts are censored? I think there are very, very few, and they're pretty illicit. I think that's the kind of market that Ethereum may disrupt. But in the future, people will recognize that to a contract, you just need privacy. You don't need this inefficient decentralization. And if you can find a middleman that can encrypt your contract so nobody else can snoop on it, that's all you really need. You don't really need this giant global decentralization saving your contract on 100,000 computers like Bitcoin needs.
Ether is used to pay for computational steps on this shared global computer. The blockchains, more generally speaking, are enabling a new type of digital infrastructure, and it is like the database in its applicability in terms of everything gets affected by it. When you think about the birth of the database and then the birth of the internet, it's a similar kind of transition that we're seeing in information technology that was born by Bitcoin. And now, what Ethereum has really added to the conversation is, what we can start doing with smart contracts. And I believe Diego from Rootstock is on. Is he? He wasn't able to make it. So they're actually, that's an organization that's bringing smart contract functionality actually based on the Ethereum virtual machine. And trying to make that work with the Bitcoin protocol itself. So, we can talk more about what that's going to look like and how, and one way to start thinking about it, and not even a totally technical way, but in something that might be a little bit more familiar in terms of what's happening, or at least, how different these types of systems are.
Cool. Anything to add, anybody? Okay, so today, the price of Bitcoin, did you have something to add? No. Yeah, go for it.
Well, okay. Well, I'll say one thing. I don't really understand the smart idea about smart contracts. I have been an entrepreneur for quite a long time, and you write contracts, but usually the business actually works on trust. The contract is just a backup. I never have to, it's very rare event to actually rely on the contracts. So, and the only thing actually I see that is working on the Ethereum platform right now, and it seems to work really well in a way, is the ICOs. But the bad luck is that most of the projects doing ICOs seem to be total scams. So,
what's your definition of working?
Well, people are playing with them, using them. So. But for example, I have seen 5 projects that are doing ICO to build a local Ethereum.
I think it's totally a fair point. I mean, ICOs have been obviously this huge thing. But what we're talking about is fundamentally deeper than that, right? I mean, we've already made the analogy that this is a new information architecture, right? And I believe that to be true. I think most people do, and that applies equally, I think, to both chains. And it certainly isn't one or the other. Also, let's keep that in mind. But it's like you were in this room in 1995. It existed. You're at the same conference. We're the same people. We're just 20 years. Our doppelgangers 20 years ago, and you say the internet is for socially awkward people. And it's like, that was true in a certain sense, but it really missed the point. ICOs is one application, it's an early application. There are obviously a lot of things fueling it. But the applicability of these types of architectures are far and beyond ICOs.
I think it's also fair to say that in the early days of Bitcoin as well, there was a lot of different uses there that people wouldn't see that they're using it for now. So it's going through the same stage. We have Ethereum was started in end of 2013, didn't launch till halfway through 2015. You got Bitcoin's been around since 2009. Things are going to take time, and I think I'm a big fan of Bitcoin, a big fan of Ethereum, and I think Ethereum is going to develop, and it's going to take time, but I don't see much value on it right now either. But I'm supporting the ecosystem around it, and that's what's going to grow and that's going to flourish as ideas and concepts come to fruition, and as the projects begin to execute. And that's what I think is sorely missing. There's a lot of ideas out there right now. The actual opportunity for these companies to actually execute on their ideas is slim to none for most of these projects. And there's a lot of people putting in money into things that will never get off the ground. But it's still very early, and the cream will rise to the top, and we're going to go through cycles, and probably going to go through a few different bubbles, and things are going to happen. It's going to be very similar to the dot-com bubble, I believe. Who knows when that's going to happen? But there will be value that emerges over the years, and it's going to grow into a very flourishing ecosystem.
So my favorite example of the dot-com bubble is Pets.com. If anyone remembers that, they raised a bunch of money and they had nothing. But also, I mean, to that point, I mean, a lot of critical stuff is going to be built and is being built right now. Not all the projects are going to succeed, and some of them are scams, and you have to be careful. But remember, Amazon was funded in 1994. So that's also kind of an interesting data point to keep in mind.
Yeah, but Pets.com really is Amazon, right? They just had the wrong name and they started with the wrong product. They pretty much did the same thing. One started selling books and one started selling pet supplies. It really could have been the other way around right now.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. So just check that today the price of Bitcoin is 5,600 Canadian, and wow, huge round of applause for that. And the price of Ethereum is about $400 Canadian right now, which is also huge. The question, I guess, is what do you think some of the major factors are that are impacting Bitcoin and Ethereum? Do you think the prices are interconnected, and why?
All right, I'll start. I think the price is connected because, I mean, sometimes when one of these cryptocurrencies has trouble, everyone tries to, push theirs because it's better. So they occasionally have this inverse relationship. But from what we've seen, anytime Bitcoin starts to rise really quick, these altcoins also start to rise even faster in percentage terms. And it's no different than silver versus gold relationship. Whenever they both go up, silver goes up faster. Whenever they both go down, silver goes down faster. Because people a lot of traders think they can make easier money buying a cheaper alternative. But in reality, I think at the end, we're only going to have one proof of work blockchain of substance. Like as Bitcoin gets more and more popular and the mining keeps growing bigger and bigger and bigger around the world, the rest will grow but at a slower rate. And just like today, we don't have multiple internets, we just have one. I think at the end, we're only going to need one proof of work blockchain. There'll be a few others. Litecoin might hang around. Monero might hang around just because they do something real niche, real small. But on percentage term, I really do expect there to be just one. That's just my view on it.
I don't think it's a fair comparison to say I mean, you didn't start off with 15 internets. We didn't start off with hundreds of internets.
They tried. They thought the intranet would take over, and they did try.
But that got realized very quickly. You're seeing a growth of many, many more coming up. So I don't think it's a fair comparison. I would say it's more like the browsers to a technology. And you can have a ton of them out there, and the ones that provide more value will succeed, and it's going to be extremely competitive. So I don't think relating to being one internet is what's going to emerge. I think you're going to see thousands of these things with different use cases, all providing different value, and those things will. I think saying there's going to be one, that's it. There won't be any more. I think is ridiculous.
The reason I don't think of it as browsers. The reason why I don't think of it as browsers is that it costs you nothing to switch browsers. I've actually started with Firefox this year, switched to Brave, realized that was terrible, and now I'm on.
Okay, sorry, we're gonna.
No offense to Brave, I just didn't like the browser.
Keep it on the topic of Bitcoin and Ethereum.
But and now I'm on Chrome, and because it didn't cost me anything to switch from one to the other. It costs a lot to switch from one blockchain to the other financially.
Well, yeah. Well, I would have like a little bit different angle on that, like in a sense, coming from if you think about the traditional finance world, it's like all the things when it's related to money or value transfer, it's like it's really resistant to change. And people pick up things really slowly, and they also abandon things really slowly. So that is one thing, like for us, like and there's like a big amount of like really casual Bitcoin users out there who don't even know about like Ethereum and so on. It's for example, I would say maybe 80% of our customers might be like that. So it's like it's very difficult to say what is going to happen, but like my viewpoint is kind of the angle that most of the people don't really care that much, even though they use Bitcoin or something like that.
The price is interesting, especially in the short term. Markets, if you've been in the cryptocurrency space, maybe it's your first interaction with the markets, right? You start to understand that they're a very fickle thing in the short term, and that applies especially to a rapidly changing environment, right? I think over the long term, we can start thinking about what a fundamental analysis might look like. And ultimately, that's going to be born by the services that are interoperating on the technology stack, creating network effects in that stack, enabling new use cases on top of it. But until then, it's very hard to understand why one cryptocurrency should be worth X versus Y. Consider the interoperation between those services and start seeing where the network effects are happening, who's building code, and where is that code interoperating with other encoded business logic on the blockchain. And that's, I think, where a lot of value will start to emerge.
Okay. Oh, so I'm going to talk quickly about the economic model of Bitcoin. So Ethereum has slightly different economic model than Bitcoin. Bitcoin block rewards half every 4 years, while Ethereum releases the same amount of Ether every year for infinity. What's the importance of this, and how do they differ?
Well, I have to say that I have been trying to figure out how the Ethereum inflation model works like 5 times, and I still don't understand it. It's like, one thing like with Bitcoin important to me is that it's like I know that there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoins in existence. But with Ethereum, I don't really get it, like how it works, because as I understand, it's like it doesn't have a similar cap.
It's very similar that it reduces towards zero, but it's at a percentage basis per year. So my understanding, and this is from me when we designed it, was that if it's been changed recently, I am following so many other things right now that I don't know what's been, it's very difficult for me to actually just stay on one thing. But the way it was designed was that on a percentage basis of what was initially distributed during the crowd sale. So, for example, there was 60 million that was created in the crowd sale. A percentage of the 60 million is created every year. So you have the same percentage of the 60 million created each year, which on a percentage basis reduces down to zero. It's not a fixed amount.
I kind of like the fact that Bitcoin is capped at 21 million, but that's not the most important thing to me about Bitcoin. So I don't really have a huge problem with a currency that does a little bit of inflation forever. That could be very debatable, but to me, that's not the economic issue with Ethereum. It's what I mentioned earlier about turning your users into speculators, and that creates a problem with developers. Like, who are developers programming for? Are they programming for the speculators, or are they programming for the users of the platform? That's one issue. My other issue is with that 60.
Just quickly to that point,
go
I believe in a planned upgrade or fork that they're going to allow contracts to pay for users' gas. So that may address that particular
Right,
issue.
but because it's still mining, we just had this problem in Bitcoin, and I guess the smart developers won, but you don't always control what you want your blockchain to do. Your users and your miners have a lot of say. So just because the developers want something doesn't mean it's going to happen. And I find that in Ethereum, there's been way more arrogance about what they expect in the future from their development, and it may not work out that way. But my other issue with the economics of Ethereum was the 60 million creation of a token that was pre-sold a year before the token even existed, with like no guarantees that it was even going to launch, which is why I spoke out critically against it even back then. Obviously, I didn't make profit at all from it, while other people did, so maybe I'm the idiot. But that was my issue with it, in that I didn't like that, and I think that is an economic problem. And when it does go proof of stake, then those that created it for themselves, now I understand they worked on it, so they feel like they deserve the Ethereum, but once they go proof of stake, the people that got that 60 million Ethereum pre-mine will now get to perpetually get more Ethereum. And I have a problem with that from an economic perspective, like a socialist kind of model. Collect the taxes from everybody else.
Okay.
I think you're saying though that only hands of people are the initial 60 million. There's, that's only the initial people. That's been changed. There's a growing community that would be having that amount. It's not stuck in the hands of the people that just bought the initial sale.
Oh yeah, no, it's already been moved around, and right, there was about 11 million made for the insiders, and the rest was pre-sold to the people the year before it was launched.
Okay,
Yes.
just because we're short of time, I'm going to ask some really quick questions. You can make them a bit more yes or no answers if you want. Just, keep it a bit shorter. Kidding. So the Bitcoin market cap sits at $70 billion today, and the Ethereum market cap is at $28 billion. Do you foresee it flipping?
No.
I think we all could have guessed that.
So I own Bitcoin. I own a number of different currencies, and I do believe that the trajectory will continue where Ethereum is growing and actually will eventually take over Bitcoin, just because to me the utility of it being a platform that everybody else is building on top of. And that's something you can't do with Bitcoin, in my opinion. You're not building other technologies, platforms on top of Bitcoin. Whereas Ethereum is a platform to build decentralized applications, and people are realizing it's very easy to be creating their tokens on top, whether or not it's useful or not in terms of the value we're getting now. But I do believe that we're going to continue to see it. I think it was the beginning of the year was at 10% of Ethereum was 10% of what Bitcoin was. Now it's almost half. So yeah, I do think the trajectory will continue, and you will see Ethereum eventually overtake Bitcoin on the market cap. That being said, I'm also looking at other chains and other things. Like, it's not like I'm just saying that from what I've seen. It's not that I'm actually here promoting Ethereum. I think that it's what I've seen, and I think will continue to happen.
Well, yeah, I have the first to say that I'm not against Ethereum. I'm happy for any cryptocurrency to succeed, but I strongly disagree with the point that Bitcoin is somewhat difficult to develop applications for. I think like the Bitcoin toolkit is very well developed at this point, and it's like really stable. The thing, Bitcoin has the stuff you want from
I didn't say it was
stable financial system.
I didn't say it was difficult to. I said people are not building other platforms on top of Ethereum like they are with Ethereum. Sorry, on Bitcoin like they are with Ethereum.
Well, I kind of disagree with that because I see the value in the services, the service infrastructure above Bitcoin. And I don't see Ethereum actually having that. I don't see as many services built on top of Ethereum as in Bitcoin. But maybe I'm biased. But yeah, I might be wrong.
And it's also a time difference too. I mean, you saw what was built in the when Bitcoin first came out. You had a lot of gambling sites. You had a lot of things that were being built. That's where we are right now. Still, remember, there's a good 6-year gap, 7 between the technologies.
Perfect. And Russell?
No comment.
All right, we are out of time. I'm not sure if we have time for questions, or are we going to move right on? We're going to move right on, but we'll all be here after if you want to come talk to us, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so as we transition, I have a giveaway for y'all. Who here has heard of Trezor? Trezor? Okay. Actually, before I ask that, who here doesn't have Bitcoin? Still a small number. So just to give you guys a heads up, Trezor is what you call a hardware wallet. It's a great way to store your Bitcoins offline. You've been hearing about a lot of hacks that have been happening recently with exchanges. Trezor is actually a great way for you to hold your Bitcoin in a way where it never really touches the internet, and is a very safe way to store it, and it's physical as well. But unfortunately, the first Trezor we're actually going to give to the person who signed up first for this meetup. Is there a Mark Lejour here? Oh my gosh. Perfect. Cheers. We'll have 3 more of those to give out throughout the rest of the night, so you'll be good. So we're going to transition into our next. Video's ready? Do you guys want to? No. What is Bitcoin? So remember the video that I failed at the beginning to show you guys? Would you guys like to see that video? It's only about a minute long. It is their side.
What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the first decentralized digital currency. Bitcoins are digital coins you can send through the internet. Compared to other alternatives, Bitcoins have a number of advantages. Bitcoins are transferred directly from person to person via the net, without going through a bank or clearinghouse. This means that the fees are much lower, you can use them in every country, your account cannot be frozen, and there are no prerequisites or arbitrary limits. Let's look at how it works. Bitcoins are generated all over the internet by anybody running a free application called a Bitcoin miner. Mining requires a certain amount of work for each block of coins. This amount is automatically adjusted by the network such that Bitcoins are always created at a predictable and limited rate. Your Bitcoins are stored in your digital wallet, which might look familiar if you use online banking. When you transfer Bitcoins, an electronic signature is added. After a few minutes, the transaction is verified by a miner and permanently and anonymously stored in the network. The Bitcoin software is completely open source, and anybody can review the code. Bitcoin is changing finance the same way the web changed publishing. When everyone has access to a global market, great ideas flourish. Let's look at some examples of how Bitcoins are already used today. You can purchase video games, gifts, books, servers, and alpaca socks. Several currency exchanges exist where you can trade your Bitcoins for dollars, euros, and more. Bitcoins are a great way for small businesses and freelancers to get noticed. It doesn't cost anything to start accepting them, there are no chargebacks or fees, and you'll get additional business from the Bitcoin economy. For your first Bitcoins and more information, visit weusecoins.com.
Okay, so now everyone knows about Bitcoin. So I'm going to introduce our second panel. The theme of it is blockchain for private enterprises. So here you're going to see large companies from all over the world are now beginning to explore ways on leveraging private blockchains for enterprise. So we're going to explore this arena of opportunity with some of the leading thinkers in the space, and moderating the panel is Ileana Orris-Valiente from ColliderX. We also have Ethan Buckman, CTO of Tendermint, Cosmos. Niraj Srivastava, Chief Architect at DLT Labs, formerly R3. We have Loretta Joseph. She is a blockchain evangelist, fintech leader of Australia. We also have Henry Chan. He's the product manager at WeFund and director at Consensus. Ileana?
Thank you so much. We had one more panelist who unfortunately was not able to be with us today. He's all the way in Cincinnati, so we say hello to Wayne from Tyrion. In terms of introductions, my name is Ileana Orris-Valiente. As mentioned, I'm the former co-founder of Rubix by Deloitte, where I led a lot of their advisory and technology development application work with Fortune 500 companies. I left to build a nonprofit social venture called ColliderX, where we're collecting research topics from the community. We are raising money via a crowd fund, but not an ICO. And all of the research that we're providing is going to be open source and open access to the community. I'm delighted to be joined by a great group of panelists today, and a couple of fun facts from some of the individuals. We have Loretta on the far right-hand side of me, and she's often referred to as the crazy lady that runs around the world meeting with some prime ministers, central bank governors, as well as some funny world leaders trying to convince them to not make Bitcoin illegal, and most recently was involved with getting the Indian government to not deem Bitcoin illegal. So thank you very much. And the gentleman sitting to my right, Ethan, generally would be found wearing a skirt, but unfortunately today we were told that we were sitting in director's chairs, so enterprise. We all had to wear pants, and he has chickens that he raises. Yeah. And then to his right, we have Niraj, who's the founder of DLT Labs. Previous to that, he was a banker with RBC and with Scotia until he defected and joined R3, where he was then helping the banks figure out their overall blockchain strategy. And then we have Henry, who is currently working at Consensus, and I've had the great pleasure of working with him previously during his time over at Deloitte. So everyone here today represents a wide range of perspectives, from technology through to business strategy and transformation. To kick things off, I know that your first panel was mostly talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum. And when this technology was first introduced, the majority of the interest was around the cryptocurrency aspects, the trading, now interest in the ICO phenomenon. But from an enterprise standpoint, where the majority of the interest lies is in the underlying platform and some of the use cases for distributed ledger technology. So I'm hoping that the panelists can each take turns describing some of the use cases that they have seen in action and have been involved with that are legitimately good use cases for blockchain, of which that's not everyone. So perhaps, who wants to take the question?
Okay, sure. Cool. So, yeah, this technology is pretty useful across the board. I basically see it as a natural evolution in digital automation. So we started by digitally automating business processes, and then we went to this point where we started uploading those processes to the cloud and making them highly available and fault tolerant. Where blockchains step in is really in two places. The first is on the security and cryptography side. So by adding additional layers of security and cryptography to these processes, to identification, we can make internally businesses much more secure and much less likely to be hacked. And I've often said that, even if all these cryptocurrencies fail, if we can make the general professional culture more cryptographically competent, I would consider it some amount of success. The other piece is not just making high available and fault tolerant services like we've been doing for the last 10 years or so, but making those services tolerant to malicious behavior. So this is especially important when you start to run business processes across multiple stakeholders. So when you're just confined within a single organization and you kind of trust everyone that's running your infrastructure, you tend to not really need a blockchain. But as soon as you start entering into multi-stakeholder endeavors where you're going across organizations, especially across jurisdictions, that's when this kind of technology comes into play, because it makes sure that even if you can't trust some of the participants to engage honestly, you can still have a database that's not corruptible. And that's something that we haven't really started to see be deployed yet, but we can see it across, that it could be relevant across many different industries, whether it's the supply chain, healthcare, government in general, stock markets, and so on. So maybe I'll let some of the other panelists talk more specifically about some of those verticals.
That's very true. Blockchain is not just, as we saw in the last panel, right? It's not just a cryptocurrency. It's much more than that. Cryptocurrency is just one of the million use cases which can run on top of blockchain. So it's not the fight between Bitcoin and Ethereum. It's about the fight where the blockchain can go. I'm pretty sure, whenever we start talking about cryptocurrency and stuff, people get excited. But if I start talking about distributed application, then people will get bored at, okay, whatever it is. Right. So I've been in the space since a long time, almost 2012. I've seen how the space has grown from nothing to what we see today. You won't believe there are millions of use cases, there are millions of proof of concepts which is running on top of blockchain. We at DLT Labs are involved with more than 30 projects, and that has nothing to do with cryptocurrency. Even I myself, I've been involved with a number of projects like taking education system or education platform on top of blockchain to large volume transaction system to stock exchanges, to lending platform, you name it, and everywhere blockchain has a use. Not that we are trying to push blockchain, but blockchain has a specific use there. Without blockchain, you cannot get it. You cannot go to the next level.
I'd like to touch on a use case that has not been mentioned, which is digital identity on the blockchain. At Consensus, we work very closely with the Dubai government, and one of the use cases that they've been really looking at is digital identity. And Consensus, we have a product called Uport, where we're working with the city of Zug right now to put your identity on the blockchain. And the advantage of your identity on the blockchain is self-sovereign. You get to control your identity as opposed to having your identity on Facebook or Google, where they control your identity, who you are, they have all your data. Whereas in the crypto world, your public key identifies you, and your private key is how you interact with your account, which makes this experience completely different. It's a complete paradigm shift.
Yeah, well, I have to agree with you on that. I think for me, that was, I came to the blockchain in 2012 because I lived in India a long time, and I had a lot of people that worked for me that didn't have an identification, and the day I thought about that we needed a new world was the day that I had one of my staff's little girls get raped and murdered at 13, and she had no identification, so I couldn't stand up for her. So if you can't live with dignity, you don't die with dignity. And I think that is a really good change in society. So if we can start to digitally ID people, and on a blockchain, there's some statistics about war-torn zones. We're losing thousands of kids a month. Where are they going? When you flee a war zone, you don't take your passport. So and the signatures I think is very antiquated. Passports are antiquated. Why can't we start giving people digital IDs that are on a digital platform? Because I think in an emerging world we can start taking people out of poverty. We can start banking the unbanked, and that's what I'm really passionate about. So for me, that's a really important use case. If we can solve the problem of ID, we can solve a lot of problem of poverty in the world.
Mm-hmm. So what you've heard right now are just a couple of use cases where this technology makes a significant impact. Perhaps it would be helpful for the audience as you sit here wondering what to do if you come up with an idea of a use case where a business process could be impacted by a technology, or you have a humanitarian use case like the ones Loretta and Henry were mentioning. What does one do? How do you promote that change within an organization or even within a startup or a nonprofit?
I'll jump in a little bit. Given my management consulting background, I think the most important aspect is stakeholder management. You want everyone that has a say within the use case to really understand what blockchain is, why it's different, But blockchain is not unlike any other cutting-edge technology. You really have to understand what your problem is and to see if blockchain is really a solution for the problem at hand. And if not, then maybe you have to look at something else. Blockchain is really not the silver bullet to everything.
I don't know. I have no experience inside large corporate environments, at least as an employee. I think fear is a great motivator. One of the things that's really exciting me about this technology is that it seems like banks are finally scared enough to collaborate in the open, which is like kind of a huge breakthrough. Like JP Morgan's putting out open source code now. That's awesome.
And giving bank accounts to the various startups.
And giving us bank accounts, though apparently that trend hasn't really hit Canada yet. So if you work in a Canadian bank, you should push the upper management to stop shutting down our bank accounts.
Yeah, well, that's true, but again, the thing is, we always try to link cryptocurrency and blockchain together. There's nothing wrong with blockchain. Maybe there's something wrong or not wrong with cryptocurrency. I'm not the right person to say. But if you have anything to do with blockchain, I suggest read blockchain. What really blockchain is? I know there are three types of people in this world. Fairly speaking, in last 3 years or since 2011, I've seen. There are talkers, who keep on talking blockchain, don't know what to do. There are certain researchers who are developing platforms, reinventing the wheel every day. But the problem in the market is there are no application developers. There are hardly any people who are trying to develop an application on top of blockchain, and that's what the world needs. Not the platform developers, not the talkers, but the real delivery people.
No, I have to agree on that. I can run around the world blockchaining countries, small countries and small states, but if I don't have people that can start building this stuff, I'm a bit stuck. So I think that's one of the things that we need to look for more people that actually can go and build this stuff. Henry can't do it on his own, and Ethan can't.
Well, on the question of talent, where does one find people to do the application development? Where does one find the functional experts who actually understand the industry that they're trying to disrupt in? Because I don't know about my fellow panelists, but I know in my experience I've had lots of startups approach me with a big idea of an industry that they want to disrupt, with literally zero understanding of how the industry currently works, which I think you would kind of need. But you also need the infrastructure developers. So what would you recommend as some of the areas where perhaps we need to do more as an industry?
I can. Okay. So sure, so talent, right? So that's where we all are lacking. Again, I'll go on the same thing which I said just a few minutes ago. Okay, people talk, people do, but the thing is, take it this way. If you go on Udemy or any online site, you'll find probably 5 courses on how to build your ICO, probably a couple of courses on blockchain 101, but there is no hardcore programming courses present there. There is no workshop, there are no conferences. There is no one talking about how to really program on top of blockchain. We talked about Ethereum, we talk about cryptocurrency, but where's Solidity? There's no conferences where we are talking about Solidity or Python, using which you can code on top of blockchain. So my advice is all the students, engineering colleges students, people who are interested in blockchain, if you want, buy cryptocurrency, but at the same time start studying blockchain. There are wonderful materials from people like Gavin Wood and from his company Parity as well as Vitalik. There's a lot of materials which you can read. Don't read white paper of ICOs if you want to invest, read it, but read real yellow paper of Ethereum or white paper of Bitcoin or a couple of other platforms which will make more sense, where the future is for a student, not the cryptocurrency.
Yeah, the lack of talent is something we're all feeling, not just in our industry, but generally. I think it's kind of getting at a problem of digital literacy. I see basic programming knowledge as a question of literacy more than anything, and not that all of you are going to grow up to be, well, most of you are grown up, not that all of our children are going to grow up to be software engineers, but that, just like we don't all grow up to be professional writers, but we all know how to read and write. So in the same vein, I see basic programming knowledge as critical to the next generation and all those that come after. Within our industry itself, there are a lot of efforts for education. For instance, a few shameless plugs here. I'm teaching a course this weekend that's an intro to cryptocurrencies and smart contracts. Day 1 for non-technical people. Day 2, hardcore how to program this stuff. I know there's another company in Toronto called Block Geeks. that does a lot of cryptocurrency education, so you should check them out. They have tons of resources online. So the resources are coming, but I think big companies should start spending more time promoting those resources and giving their employees a chance to actually learn this stuff, come out to these courses, and so on. There's also the question of what platform to use and how do I learn this particular platform. And so my other shameless plug is that the technology we've built, Tendermint, enables you to build your application in any programming language you want. So you don't really have to learn anything new. You take an existing software code base or you build a new one in a programming language you understand, and you can plug it in pretty seamlessly as long as you understand what an API is, which any programmer does. So we're still pretty young in this technology, but moving forward, we're going to see it become a lot easier for people to plug in existing software and to learn the new languages and how this technology works and be able to develop capacity in-house to use this stuff, just like with every new technology. And shameless plug.
Yeah, I'll build on what Ethan was saying. I think the industry as a whole has been really good at creating really useful tools for developers. And it's getting much, much easier if we compare it to 2 years ago when Ethereum first started. We don't have the truffle framework or MetaMask, any of these tools that can allow developers to accelerate dApp development. So my advice to big companies with developers in-house is just start tinkering. Deploy your own network and create your own first smart contract, and that's how you would learn.
That's true. Like tools like Puppet, which has recently come out with Ethereum, that's amazing. You can, with just some few clicks, you can develop your own private Ethereum. You need not to know anything. So tools are there. It's just that you have to go and use it. It's right there in Ethereum protocol.
Do we have any university students or professors in the audience today? Okay, you all have your homework. Drop
out and learn to code.
Exactly.
Start pushing your university administrators to incorporate blockchain into the curriculum, because at the end of the day, you want your students to be able to go out and get jobs, and frankly,
I think I should go one step below that. We should actually get all our education ministers around the world to start teaching our kids to code and our girls to code when they're little.
Great question. So if someone has an idea and they're deciding to push this within their organization or potentially build a new product or startup around it, what are some of the questions that they need to be asking themselves of whether or not blockchain actually does in fact make sense? What are some of the technology considerations, without going into too much technical depth, because we just talked about the lack of blockchain talent, but what are the questions that they should be asking if they do decide to outsource some of their blockchain development, or even if they're trying to get by with whatever limited resources they may have in-house?
So blockchain is distributed in nature. I know it's, as you said, we need not to go into technology stuff. But the only thing you have to think is, there are three words: immutability, auditability, and trust. If any of these three applies to your business, blockchain is for you. So again, immutability, auditability, and trust. Again, think of these three words. If these three words applies to your business, that's what you need. And we at DRT Labs, we are more than happy. I'm located in Toronto, so anytime feel free to get in touch. I'm more than happy to be part of it.
Probably don't. Typically what they're... Okay, thank you. Typically what they need is public key cryptography. And this is old stuff. This was invented in the 70s. There were a bunch of academics and smart guys that came up with this stuff and really had to fight against the government to make it publicly and openly accessible. And now it is, and we kind of won that war, but the government has kind of fought a different battle behind the scenes. But that's all besides the point. Typically what people need is just stronger cryptography, and in most cases you should ask yourself, can I just solve this problem with cryptography without a blockchain? And usually you can. If you think you need a blockchain, you probably only do if you're running an application in a multi-stakeholder environment. Basically what that means is you're sharing your database with multiple organizations. So typically a company has a database and one of their guys or girls is the administrator of that database, right? They have total access and control. If you're going to be in a setting where you want multiple companies to have that kind of low-level access, then you might need a blockchain. And I don't think any of those systems are actually deployed yet, but that, except for the cryptocurrency ones. I mean, like a currency is the ultimate multi-stakeholder application, right? You can't really trust anyone with it. Everyone wants to be able to use it, and everyone basically has direct write access to the database. Like when I send Bitcoin, I'm writing into the Bitcoin database directly, and I can do that because the blockchain enables that. So in that kind of setting, you probably need a blockchain. In virtually every other, you probably don't. But a bunch of us and other consultants will make a bunch of money off of this. So by all means, implement a blockchain to learn about the technology, even though you don't need one.
So definitely agreeing with Ethan's point that you need a blockchain in a multi-stakeholder environment, but please be forewarned that trying to get your suppliers, your customers, and other business parties in the same room, at the same table, negotiating the parameters of how to set up this blockchain implementation sounds a lot easier than it is to actually implement in real life. But on the topic of collaboration and stakeholder engagement, Loretta, perhaps you could share some thoughts with us based on your experience working with government leaders and regulators on how we can encourage policymakers to think through all aspects of what a new technology might mean and not make knee-jerk policy decisions that could have unintended side effects to the innovation economy.
So first of all, I actually think this is a really enabling technology. I think when we look at emerging technologies, when you threaten a system where you've got role relevance and revenue, you threaten a lot of people. So the blockchain is about to disintermediate markets. And I'm an ex-banker, and I know that the first place this was going to happen was banks and remittances. So you're going to upset a lot of people. And also, I'm old. I mean, when I started, I learned about coding 2 years ago. I learned about the blockchain in 2012. I'd been a derivatives trader for most of my life and a reform investment banker. So the people running the world are my age and older. We didn't grow up with a phone in our hand. So we come from a really centralised world. So explaining to them that there's a new asset class that's just arrived and it's decentralised is really, really difficult. And people are really scared of decentralisation, but I don't think there's anything to be scared of. And so I try and bring the stakeholders, whether it be industry, government and regulators, into a room and say, look, we have to collaborate because this technology is here to stay. It's not going to go anywhere, and you can't be scared of people like the guy sitting next to me. And I've had a couple of experiences going into reserve banks, and you guys come in and everyone talks about coding and what they talk about, their Bitcoin or Ethereum. The central banks in the government, and people running banks my age look at them as though they're asking them to run around the moon naked, because we don't speak the same language. So the first thing is, I think we have to all start collaborating and figure out this technology is here to stay, and we need to speak the same language. You need to figure out what the problem is, and then the coders and the programmers go and solve that problem cryptographically. And I think regulators are always hard. I mean, that's what they do. They regulate stuff. They don't like change. But I come from an environment in Australia where we've got a great regulator. My regulator is incredibly supportive, and he's the reason I got into blockchain, because he told me that I should go and have a look at it in 2012. I have a government that's very supportive of innovation. There are certain places that aren't, but I think we owe it to the next generation to make sure that as industry and government and regulators that we all start to work together and not against each other. And it's difficult. It's a difficult point, because I think this is a revolution in technology. It's not an evolution, and you're seeing this in the emerging markets because they're leapfrogging. So I think we as industry as well need to go into government and not expect them to change. We all have to work together to come up with solutions to take to the people that are running our nations and our world and say, these are better solutions that they will make for a better world and better generations. So let's work together, not against each other.
Mm-hmm. So that was a great comment, I think, for us to start wrapping up the formal part of the panel and opening it up to audience questions. Mid-back, yes. Mm-hmm. Stand up.
Go ahead, yeah.
So when you are running it in a private network, it's not necessary.
Hold on. To repeat the question, he was asking for a straightforward definition of blockchain, which is challenging. And second, he was asking about consensus mechanisms. If you're using proof of work, how could that actually be applied in an enterprise setting?
To answer this question, so proof of work, that's true. Like, when you are running in a private network, maybe proof of work is not best suited. There are many other consensus mechanisms available, like proof of authority, proof of stake, BZFT. So it's when you run at a private level, not necessarily you are running proof of work. It all depends on use cases. Like, I don't want to go into details. I can talk separately. But certain use cases do need proof of work. Certain use cases do need proof of authority, proof of stake, or whatever and whatever. It all depends, based on use cases. Defining blockchain, sorry, it will take a whole lot of time for me to define what is blockchain. That I'll just pass.
My expert definition of blockchain is Byzantine fault-tolerant state machine replication with hash-linked batches of transactions. It's taken a few years to come up with that. Basically, in simple terms, it's a fault-tolerant distributed database that batches the commits. That's it.
Tone has a question up front.
It doesn't require proof of work, but Tone here would probably think differently.
Just a quick question. In the beginning, somebody was talking about identity on the blockchain. But identity is like a government thing. The government has to recognize who you are based on identity. The government couldn't care less that you have an identity on Bitcoin. So the reason why Facebook does your identity is because the government lets them. So how do you, I don't understand how that makes sense, actually, because it's up to the government whether to recognize it or not.
Well, I think there are certain governments that are more forward-thinking, that are recognizing a blockchain-based identity would be the future. So certain jurisdictions are recognizing a blockchain-based identity.
So actually the way it works is it's not about Bitcoin or it's not about Ethereum. Still the government will be the front face. So today how things work that, okay, government creates an identity and it puts it on certain database, and database can still be corrupted today. It's a centralized database. So think about this way. There are a couple of banks, 5-6 banks here in Canada, RBC, Scotia, this and that. Whenever you go and open an account in any of the banks, you have to do KYC individually, right? What if we can create a distributed system where all the banks are sharing the ledger books, right? And your identity, after being verified by the government, will be put on top of that particular blockchain so that all the bank can pull in. The benefit is the data cannot be corrupted and it can be easily shared. So that's one of the best use cases which can go on top of blockchain. Make sense?
So with that, unfortunately, we will have to wrap it up for this evening's panel. We have lots more exciting content to follow. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.